What is the City of London, and how does it differ from, well, London? Why are there two Londons, and why does the city work beyond the authority of Parliament? And how does the medieval corporation that is the City of London undermine attempts to curb the excesses of global finance? And how has it remained the spider at the center of a great secretive financial offshore web that it has spun across the globe? And why is it that nobody seems to know about this? The city-state is not a new concept. Probably the most famous examples were those from ancient Greece, Sparta, Corinth, Athens, but they do survive to the modern day, with examples being such as Singapore, Hong Kong, the Vatican, Washington, D.C., and the City of London, or its official title, the City of London Corporation. The City of London is a very murky and nebulous ancient creation. And the most important thing to remember is that the City of London is not the same as the London metropolis or Greater London. The city was founded by the Romans more than 2,000 years ago, and the wall, or what's left of it, that they built still demarcates the city's boundaries, that and a bunch of little dragon statues. 1,000 years later, William the Conqueror gave sovereign status to the city, allowing it to continue enjoying separate rights and privileges so long as it recognized him as king. And it was the kings that succeeded William that decided to build their new capital city and name it Westminster, very close to the City of London. The Square Mile, or the City of London, lives inside of the city that grew around it, also named, but at a much later date, London. Despite these confusingly close names, the two Londons have separate city halls and elect, in a very different way it must be pointed out, separate mayors who collect separate taxes to fund separate police forces who enforce separate laws. The City of London has its own flag and crest, while London proper has neither. The mayor of the City of London has a snazzy title, the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of London, and he gets to ride around in a golden carriage wearing period costumes. He even has an annual parade in his honour, while the Mayor of London doesn't have any of these. And it should be noted that the Mayor of London has no power over the Lord Mayor of London. But what's extremely important to point out, and is unique, is that the City of London is a corporation, and this corporation is older than the United Kingdom itself by several hundred years. And the city has a representative in the Parliament who is known as the Remembrancer, who is present to protect the city's interests. The Square Mile is more similar to the countries that make up the UK than just some oddly located city, and even the ruling British monarch, currently Queen Elizabeth herself, doesn't simply just enter the City of London on a whim, but instead asks for permission from the Lord Mayor at a ceremony. The city is an ancient, semi-autonomous corporate entity lodged inside the nation-state of Britain, but probably the most important aspect of the corporation of the City of London is that the laws passed by the British Parliament in many instances do not apply to the Square Mile. The corporation also has its own interesting political system as well. The Square Mile is broken up into 25 electoral wards. In 4 of them, the approximately 9,500 people who live within its boundaries are permitted to vote. In the remaining 21, the votes are controlled by the businesses, mostly banks and other financial companies, that are based there. The bigger the organization, the bigger the vote. Thus, domestic and international corporations are the main voters for the corporation that is the City of London. And the Corporation of the City of London has many other unique functions and features. It owns and operates lands and buildings far outside its borders, making it extremely wealthy. It also possesses a vast pool of cash that it can spend as it wishes without any democratic oversight, as well as expanding its enormous portfolio of properties. It uses this money to lobby on behalf of the banks, for looser regulations of the financial industry, and for the liberalization of banking within the square mile and beyond. The city is among the most concentrated financial centers on Earth. In the square mile, you'll find the Bank of England, all British banks, the branch offices of hundreds of foreign banks, dozens of American banks, and along with banks, you'll find Lloyd's, the London Stock Exchange, Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies, and for those that like conspiracies, the city houses the Metropolitan Grand Freemasonry Lodge. But more important than that is that the City of London Corporation is at the center of a great, secretive financial offshore network that spans the globe. Few people care that London has a mayor and a Lord Mayor, but they should. The corporation is basically an offshore island tax haven, and instead of being surrounded by water, like the Cayman Islands for example, the city is surrounded by the sea of urban sprawl that makes up Greater London. The corporation's being a state within the state of Britain is just one element of the offshore story, and it is by no coincidence that the square mile that generated the capital for the British colonial adventures of old lies in the capital city of what was once the greatest world empire, and has become the center of a large part of the modern global offshore system. The city has exploited its remarkable position to establish itself as a kind of offshore state, a jurisdiction of secrecy with little political and regulatory oversight. The square mile controls the network of tax havens housed in the UK's Crown dependencies and overseas territories. This semi-autonomous state within London is in a position to launder all of the ill-gotten cash of oligarchs, kleptocrats, gangsters, and drug barons. Even in places such as Hong Kong and the Bahamas, which Britain no longer controls, still feed billions in business to the city that they shadily collect from around the world. Haven't you ever wondered why London's damp, cramped, red brick, two-tapped housing, where double pane glass is seen as a luxury, is worth more than the entire Brazilian economy? Dirty money needs somewhere to be laundered and parked. Even more glaring to the outsider is that the city has made the effective regulation of global finance almost impossible, and shows how the semi-autonomous nature of the city has even allowed American banks to evade the rules set by their own government. The city also, and most importantly, is at the center of a system that deprives the UK, as well as many other nations, including the United States, of their rightful tax receipts from mega corporations, individuals, such as former Prime Minister David Cameron, incidentally, or any other group using their offshore networks to engage in tax avoidance. The square mile is a hub of a global network of tax havens sucking up offshore trillions from around the world and sending it, or the business of handling it, to the city. And this is the real reason for the city's power and wealth, even if the vast majority of people, especially in the UK, are completely unaware and have no understanding of it. Can you imagine if people were made aware of the privileges the square mile has accrued for itself over the centuries? Let's just do a little mental exercise here. Imagine a part of Liverpool, Manchester, or Birmingham, it doesn't really matter, but let's say one of them said that a square mile of our city is now a corporation, and it will remain outside the authority of Parliament. It will be democratic, but foreign and domestic businesses, mostly banks, will be permitted to vote as though they were people, and their votes will vastly outnumber those of the actual people who live in our city. Also, our elected officials will be chosen from only a select group of people already entrenched in the system, and a good chunk of the money that is generated by the corporation, that is our autonomous city, will go to lobbying Parliament on the behalf of domestic and foreign banking interests, and we will work feverishly to fight against any regulatory oversight of the global banking system, and we are going to become monstrously wealthy by skimming profits off of laundered money and tax evaders worldwide. What do you think the rest of the country would say? Over the past several decades, bankers, hedge funds, traders have all dramatically and continually claimed that they would leave the city if they were taxed or regulated, which in turn has seen the political class hand more privileges to the square mile. And as the city's fortunes have waxed and waned across the centuries, they could be in for a rough patch in the near future in terms of Brexit and its effect on the city. As representatives of other financial centers across the continent, Amsterdam, Paris, and Frankfurt to name just a few, are currently flooding into London and trying to convince many of the banks of the benefits of their cities post-Brexit. And that is a video that will be made with the help of a friend of mine who is an investment banker and has a lot of experience working and living in the city. Till then, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like this material, please consider supporting this channel via Patreon. Also find Black Pigeon on the usual social media and check out the website blackpigeonspeaks.com for more interesting information like this.